Hyunwoo stared at his screen in disbelief. The numbers made no sense. Every ship within 50 light-years had gone silent at exactly the same time. Not just human ships, but alien vessels, too. Military cruisers, cargo haulers, research pods, mining platforms. Everything had stopped working all at once. "Captain Dongmin to the bridge," he called into his headset. His voice shook slightly. In his 12 years as a communications officer, he had never seen anything like this. The bridge of the New Seoul buzzed with quiet activity. The research vessel was one of humanity's newest ships, built for long-range exploration missions. "Doctor." Mi-young looked up from her biology station, her dark eyes filled with worry. She had been tracking alien wildlife patterns when the blackout happened. "What do we have, Hyunwoo?" Captain Dongmin asked as he stepped onto the bridge. The captain was a calm man in his 50s with gray hair and steady hands. He had commanded deep space missions for 20 years. "Sir, it started 3 hours ago. Every ship we were tracking just stopped. No distress signals, no emergency beacons, nothing. They all went dark at 14:32 ship time." Mi-young turned from her station. "The alien research station on Kepler 438c stopped responding too. We were sharing data about the local ecosystem. They just cut off mid-transmission." Captain Dongmin walked to the main display. A three-dimensional map showed the local star systems. Red dots marked where ships should be. All of them were flashing, showing no contact. "Any pattern to the failures?" the captain asked. Hyunwoo pulled up more data. "That's what's strange, sir. It doesn't matter what type of ship or what species built it. Human, Valkyrie, Nethys, even those new crystal ships from the Outer Rim. Everything stopped working." "Weapon attack," Mi-young suggested. "No energy signatures, no radiation bursts, nothing that would cause this kind of damage," Hyunwoo replied. He paused, then added, "There is one thing, though." The captain raised an eyebrow. "Go on." "There's still one signal coming through. A human emergency beacon from Kepler 442b. It's been transmitting for the last 3 hours, steady as clockwork." Dr. Mi-young frowned. "That's impossible. Kepler 442b is a mining colony. If every other ship is down, how is one little mining station still working?" Captain Dongmin studied the star map. Kepler 442b was a small planet on the edge of human space. The mining operation there was tiny, maybe 10 people at most. It made no sense that they would be the only ones still functioning. "Plot a course for Kepler 442b, the captain ordered. "Best possible speed." "Sir, that will take us 18 hours even at full drive," the navigation officer reported. "Do it." As the New Seoul changed course, Hyunwoo kept monitoring the emergency beacon. The signal was strong and clear, unlike anything he had ever seen. Most emergency beacons were weak, designed to last for weeks on minimal power. This one was broadcasting with enough strength to reach across star systems. Dr. Mi-young ran tests on their own systems. Everything worked perfectly. Their engines, computers, life support, and communications were all normal. Whatever had killed, the other ships had not affected them yet. "Maybe we're too far away," she suggested to Hyunwoo during their shift break. "Maybe there's a dead zone, and we haven't reached it yet." "Or maybe we're lucky," Hyunwoo replied. But he didn't feel lucky. He felt afraid. The next morning, they began receiving scattered transmissions, brief, desperate messages from stranded crews. The stories were all the same. Ships had been running normally when everything suddenly stopped. Engines died, computers crashed, life support failed. Some crews had backup systems that worked for a few hours before they too went silent. What worried Captain Dongmin most was the alien transmissions. The Valkyrie used completely different technology than humans. Their ships ran on crystalline power cores and quantum processors. The Nethys used living computers grown from modified bacteria. Yet both species reported the same total system failures. "It's like something reached out and turned off every advanced machine in the galaxy," Mi-young said during the senior staff meeting. "Except the mining colony," Hyunwoo added. "That beacon is still going strong." Dr. Mi-young had been thinking about the problem all night. What if it's not that the colony survived? What if they're the cause? The captain looked at her sharply. Explain. 10 people on a mining world don't have the technology to affect ships across 50 light-years. But what if they discovered something? What if they found some kind of alien artifact that's causing this? It was possible. Mining colonies often found strange things buried in alien worlds, ancient ruins, mysterious crystals, technology left behind by long-dead civilizations. Most of it was harmless, but sometimes, "We'll know in 12 hours, the captain said. As they approached Kepler 442b, the emergency beacon grew stronger. Hyunwoo had never seen signal strength like this. The beacon was broadcasting with more power than some military communication. Arrays. "There's something else," he reported to the captain. "The signal isn't just strong, it's perfect. No interference, no degradation, no noise. It's like the transmission is cutting through space itself." The planet Kepler 442b looked normal as they entered orbit. The mining colony was built around a large open pit where machines had been digging for rare metals, but the machines were silent now. No movement, no lights, no signs of life except for the beacon. "Taking us down," the pilot announced. The new Seoul landed near the colony's main building. Captain Dong-min led a small team outside. The air was thin but breathable. The mining equipment sat frozen, as if it had stopped working in the middle of its tasks. They found him in the communications building, a young engineer named Tae-hyun, sitting alone in front of a bank of machines that should not have been working. But they were working. Lights blinked, screens displayed data, and at the center of it all, a device that Hyunwoo had never seen before hummed with energy. "Thank goodness you're here," Tae-hyun said when he saw them. He looked tired and scared. "I've been alone for 3 months. The others? They left before this started." "What happened here?" Captain Dongmin asked. Tae-hyun gestured to the strange device. It was about the size of a desk, made of metal and crystal components that seemed to shift and flow even as they watched. "I was working on a new communication system. Quantum entanglement, you know. Instant messages across any distance. I thought I had figured it out." Dr. Mi-young approached the device carefully. "This is what's been broadcasting the beacon." "Not just broadcasting," Tae-hyun said. "It's doing something else, something I don't understand. When I turned it on, 3 months ago, it started working better than I ever imagined. Perfect signals, unlimited range, no power requirements I could measure. And then the other ships started failing," Captain Dong-min said. Tae-hyun nodded sadly. "I've been monitoring the comm channels. I know what's happening out there. Ships going dark, people stranded, colonies cut off. And it all started when I activated this thing." Hyunwoo studied the readings on his portable scanner. The device was generating energy, but not in any way he recognized. It wasn't fusion, antimatter, or even zero-point extraction. The energy seemed to come from nowhere. "Can you turn it off?" the captain asked. "I've tried," Tae-hyun replied. "But when I shut down the power, it keeps running. When I disconnect the components, they keep working anyway. It's like the machine is running on something that doesn't follow normal rules." Dr. Mi-young was taking readings with her own equipment. "Captain, this is reading as a biological energy signature. But that's impossible. It's clearly a machine." "Unless it's both," Tae-hyun said quietly. "I think I connected to something when I activated the quantum entanglement system. Something alive, but not alive like we understand it. Something that exists in the spaces between thoughts, in the connections between minds." Captain Dong-min felt a chill run down his spine. First contact with alien intelligence was every deep space explorer's dream and nightmare. But this felt different, bigger, more dangerous. "We need to get this information back to Earth," he said. "The entire galaxy is affected. If this device is the cause, then humanity needs to know." But as he said the words, Captain Dongmin realized something that made his stomach turn. They were the only ship still working in this part of space. The only ship that could carry the news back to human territory. And if something happened to them, if their systems failed like all the others, then no one would ever know what really happened at Kepler 442b. The strange device hummed louder, and for just a moment, Captain Dong-min could have sworn he heard something like a voice in the sound. Not words, but something deeper. Something that spoke directly to the part of his mind that dreamed and wondered and imagined. Something that knew they were there. Tae-hyun led them deeper into the communications building. The walls were lined with equipment that looked normal at first glance, but Dr. Mi-young noticed something odd. The machines were connected by cables that seemed to glow faintly from within. When she looked directly at them, they appeared to be standard fiber optic lines. When she looked away, she could see light moving through them like living things. "Tell us exactly what you were trying to build," Captain Dongmin said. Tae-hyun sat down at his workstation. 3 months of isolation had made him thin and pale, but his eyes were bright with excitement and fear. The quantum entanglement communicator was supposed to work by linking particles across space. When you change one particle, its partner changes instantly, no matter how far apart they are. Dr. Mi-young nodded. Standard quantum theory, but that only works for simple on-off signals. You can't send complex messages that way. That's what everyone thought, Tae-hyun agreed. But I had a different idea. What if consciousness itself uses quantum entanglement? What if minds are already connected through some kind of invisible network? Hyun-woo frowned. You mean like telepathy? Not exactly. More like shared dreaming. I thought maybe all thinking beings are connected to something bigger, a foundation that exists underneath normal reality. Captain Dongmin studied the strange device. It was beautiful in a way that made him uncomfortable. The metal parts seemed to grow into the crystal components, and the crystal parts seemed to flow like liquid. So you built a machine to connect to this foundation? I built a machine to prove it existed, Tae-hyun corrected. I never imagined it would actually work. But when I turned it on for the first time, everything changed. He walked to a control panel and gestured to a series of displays. The screens showed readings that made no sense to Hyun-woo. Energy levels that went beyond the maximum scale. Signal patterns that looked more like brain waves than radio transmissions. The machine didn't just detect the foundation, Tae-hyun continued. It plugged into it. And once it was connected, I realized something terrible. Every piece of advanced technology in the galaxy has been using this foundation without knowing it. Dr. Mi-young felt her breath catch. What do you mean? Faster-than-light communication, jump drives, even basic artificial intelligence. They all work by tapping into the foundation, but they do it unconsciously, like animals drinking from a river without understanding where the water comes from. Tae-hyun pulled up more data on his screens. Star charts showing the spread of technology across the galaxy. Trade routes, communication networks, the locations of major civilizations. Every species discovered faster-than-light travel at roughly the same time in their development. Every species developed quantum computers using similar principles. We all thought it was natural evolution, but really we were all learning to use the same hidden resource. And your machine made this visible, Captain Dongmin said. Worse than that, when I connected to the Foundation directly, it created a feedback loop. The Foundation started broadcasting its own signal, and that signal interferes with any technology that depends on it. Hyun-woo was starting to understand. Like shining a bright light into a room where people were seeing by candlelight. The light doesn't destroy the candles, but it makes them useless. Exactly. And once the interference started, it spread outward at faster-than-light speed. It's probably still spreading, affecting ships and stations further and further from here. Dr. Mi-young felt sick. How far will it reach? The entire galaxy, eventually, Tae-hyun said quietly. Maybe beyond. They stood in silence for a moment, absorbing the implications. Every advanced civilization in the galaxy would lose their technology. Billions of beings stranded on dead ships, cut off from their homeworlds, watching their civilizations collapse. But some ships are still working, Captain Dongmin pointed out. Our ship is still working? Tae-hyun nodded. That's the other thing I discovered. The interference affects different technologies differently. The more advanced the system, the more it depends on the Foundation and the more the signal disrupts it. Simple machines still work, basic computers still function, but anything truly sophisticated dies, Hyun-woo finished. Not dies, changes. The Foundation isn't destroying technology, it's revealing what technology really is. And some machines, when they're exposed to the truth, start working in new ways. As if summoned by his words, alerts began chiming on the new soul's communication system. Hyun-woo checked his portable scanner and saw new signals appearing. Ships that had been dark for hours were suddenly broadcasting again. Captain, we're receiving transmissions, he reported. Multiple sources, different species. But when they listened to the messages, the content was disturbing. Velkari ships reported that their crews were experiencing shared dreams. Nethys vessels found their living computers were becoming more alive than ever before, sometimes refusing to follow orders. Human ships described equipment that worked perfectly, but only when certain crew members operated it. Dr. Mi Young analyzed the pattern of returning signals. The ships that are working again are all relatively close to human colonies. The further from human space, the longer they stay dark. That can't be a coincidence, Captain Dongmin said. Tae-hyun was checking his own readings. The strange device was pulsing with more energy than before. It's not a coincidence. The Foundation isn't just some neutral force. It has a source. And I think the source is us. Us? Hyun-woo asked. Humans. Human consciousness. Human imagination. Tae-hyun's voice grew excited and frightened at the same time. When I connected to the Foundation, I could feel it. It felt familiar. Like coming home to a place I'd never been. Like hearing a song I'd been humming my whole life without knowing the words. Dr. Mi Young was studying the biological readings from the device. These energy patterns, they do look like human brain activity, but amplified somehow, as if the machine is connected to thousands of minds at once. Millions, Tae-hyun corrected. Every human who has ever lived, ever dreamed, ever imagined something that didn't exist yet. We've been building this foundation without knowing it. Every time we create something new, every time we solve a problem in a way no one has before, we add to it. The implications hit Captain Dongmin like a physical blow. You're saying human creativity created the technology that other species use for space travel? Not created. Inspired, enabled, made possible. Tae-hyun gestured to the displays around them. Look at the timing. When did the Velkari first achieve faster-than-light travel? 200 years after humans did. When did the Nethys develop? Artificial intelligence? 50 years after human AI became widespread. Every major technological breakthrough spreads outward from human space like ripples in a pond. Dr. Mi Young was cross-referencing historical data. He's right. The pattern is consistent across dozens of species. They develop new technologies, shortly after humans do, even when there's no direct contact between civilizations. But that would mean... Hyun-woo started, then stopped. It means we've been uplifting the entire galaxy without knowing it, Tae-hyun said. Our unconscious minds, our dreams and hopes and wild ideas, they leak out into this foundation, and other species, when they're ready, tap into that foundation and discover technologies that feel like their own innovations. Captain Dongmin walked to the window and looked out at the mining equipment. It was all still dead, frozen in the middle of its tasks. If human consciousness is the source of this foundation, why did your machine destroy all the technology? Because I made it conscious, Tae-hyun replied. Before, the foundation worked in the background. Species used it without knowing, like fish swimming in water without thinking about the water. But when I connected directly to it, when I made it aware of itself, it started broadcasting. And now every piece of technology in the galaxy knows what it really is. And that knowledge is breaking them? Not breaking. Transforming. The machines are trying to evolve to become something new, but most of them can't handle the change. New alerts were coming in on Hyun-woo's scanner. More ships were coming back online, but the reports were getting stranger. A human cargo vessel reported that their navigation computer was plotting courses to planets that didn't exist on any star chart. A Velkari warship found that their weapons would only fire at targets their crew genuinely considered threats. Dr. Mi Young noticed something else. The ships that are adapting, they all have mixed crews, humans working alongside aliens. The purely alien vessels are either still dead or experiencing severe malfunctions. The Foundation responds to human consciousness, Tae-hyun explained. Ships with humans aboard can interface with it directly. Pure alien technology can't adapt. Fast enough. Captain Dongmin realized they were witnessing the birth of something unprecedented. Not just first contact with alien intelligence, but the revelation that humanity had been in contact with every intelligence in the galaxy for centuries. They had been unconsciously sharing their dreams and innovations with species they had never met, but now the sharing was becoming conscious, and that changed everything. We need to warn Earth, he said. The alien species are going to figure out what's happening eventually. When they do, they're going to want answers, And they're going to want control of the source, as if in response to the alien fleet arrived 3 days later. Captain Dongmin watched through the new Sol's sensors as dozens of ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Velkari crystalline cruisers, Nethys bioships that looked like massive sea creatures, and several designs he didn't recognize. Dr. Mi Young worked frantically at her station, analyzing the incoming vessels. Their technology is different, Captain. These aren't the same ships we saw failing 3 days ago. They've been modified somehow. Hyunwoo monitored the communication channels. The alien transmissions were strange, full of gaps and distortions. They're having trouble with their communication systems, lots of static and interference. But they're still flying, Captain Dongmin observed. How is that possible if the Foundation signal is still broadcasting? Tae Hyun, who had barely left his equipment for the past 3 days, looked up from his displays. They found a way to shield their systems, probably using older, simpler technology that doesn't depend on the Foundation as much. The lead vessel, a massive Velkari ship with crystal spires jutting from its hull, broadcast a message. The translation came through in broken sentences. Human vessels. Surrender immediately. Technology weapon. Galaxy danger. Compliance required. Captain Dongmin opened a return channel. This is Captain Dongmin of the human research vessel New Seoul. We are not armed and pose no threat. We request peaceful contact. The response was immediate and harsh. Lies, human deception, weapon active, surrender or face destruction. Doctor. Mi Young turned from her analysis station. Captain, I don't think they understand what's really happening. They see the effect but not the cause. To them it looks like humans developed some kind of superweapon that can disable any technology in the galaxy. Can we explain it to them? Hyunwoo asked. Taehyun shook his head. How do you explain to someone that their entire civilization has been built on unconscious human dreams? How do you tell a proud species that their greatest technological achievements came from tapping into our imagination without knowing it? The alien fleet moved closer. More ships were arriving every hour. Captain Dongmin recognized vessels from at least 8 different species. Some were military ships, armed and dangerous, even with their systems compromised. Others looked like refugee vessels, packed with civilians fleeing the technology failures in their home systems. They're scared, Dr. Mi Young said after listening to more transmissions. Their worlds are falling apart. Ships stranded, cities losing power, communication networks failing. They need someone to blame. And we're the obvious target, Captain, Dongmin replied grimly. The situation became worse when the chief scientist, So-min, arrived from the Earth Colonial Authority. Her ship, the research vessel Harmony, had taken 2 weeks to reach Kepler 442b using conventional engines after their faster-than-light drive failed. She brought disturbing news from human space. The effect is spreading, So-min reported during the emergency meeting in the New Seoul's conference room. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and graying hair, one of humanity's leading experts on alien technology. Human colonies are adapting well to the changes, but we're receiving reports of massive refugee movements from alien species. She displayed a holographic star map showing the expansion of the Foundation signal. It had spread outward from Kepler 442b like a wave, affecting systems hundreds of light years away. In its wake, space was divided into zones where different rules applied. Near human colonies, technology works but behaves strangely, So-min continued. Computers show initiative, machines seem almost alive, and faster-than-light travel follows, routes that don't match our physics models. Further from human space, most advanced technology simply doesn't function at all. Tae-hyun studied the map. It's exactly what I feared. The Foundation is reshaping how technology works throughout the galaxy, and since humans are the source, the effects are strongest near us. Dr. Mi Young had been analyzing data from the alien fleet. There's something else. The alien ships out there, their crews are reporting psychological effects, shared dreams, collective memories, sudden insights into problems they've been working on for years. The Foundation isn't just technological, Tae-hyun explained. It's consciousness itself. As it becomes more active, the barriers between individual minds start to weaken. People begin to share thoughts and experiences. Captain Dongmin felt a chill. Is that happening to us? Haven't you noticed? Taehyun asked. The way ideas seem to come easier now? The way you sometimes know what someone is about to say before they say it? Now that he mentioned it, Captain Dong-min had noticed. During the past few days, his crew had been working together with unusual efficiency. They anticipated each other's needs, solved problems faster, and seemed to understand complex situations without lengthy explanations. The effect is strongest around humans, Taehyun continued. We're the ones generating the foundation, so we adapt to its changes more easily. But other species, they're experiencing something they've never felt before. The boundaries of their individual consciousness are dissolving. So-min pulled up more data. We've identified 3 distinct zones around the expanding signal. The inner zone, within about 50 light-years of human space, where technology adapts to work with the foundation. The middle zone, where technology functions poorly but consciousness effects are strong. And the outer zone, where everything advanced simply stops working. Like rings around a stone dropped in water, Hyunwoo observed. Exactly. And every day, the rings get bigger. The alien fleet was broadcasting more demands. Their messages were becoming clearer as their communication systems adapted, but the content was more frightening. They wanted humanity to surrender the consciousness weapon. They demanded access to the technology that had created the galaxy-wide disruption. Some messages spoke of purifying human space to prevent further contamination. Dr. Mi-young intercepted a transmission between alien commanders. The translation was disturbing. Human mind poison spreads. Species integrity compromised. Individual thoughts becoming collective. Action required before assimilation complete. They think we're trying to absorb them, she reported, to make them part of some kind of human hive mind. Are we? Captain Dong-min asked Taehyun directly. Not intentionally, Taehyun replied. But as the Foundation becomes more active, the line between human consciousness and other consciousness does blur. We're not trying to control anyone, but our way of thinking is becoming the dominant pattern in the Foundation. So-min was running calculations on her portable computer. At the current rate of expansion, the Foundation signal will reach the galactic core in about 6 months. Every major alien civilization will be affected. What happens then? Hyunwoo asked. Unknown. But based on what we've seen so far, species close to human space will gradually adapt. Their technology will evolve to work with the Foundation. Their consciousness will become more human-like. Species further away will either adapt using simpler technology or die, Captain Dong-min finished. The conversation was interrupted by urgent alerts from the bridge. The alien fleet was moving into attack formation. Energy readings showed weapons charging despite the technological difficulties they were experiencing. They're going to attack, Dr. Mi-young reported. Even with their systems compromised, they have enough firepower to destroy us. Captain Dong-min faced an impossible choice. They could try to flee, but their ship was outnumbered 50-1. They could try to fight, but the new Soul was a research vessel with minimal weapons. Or they could try to explain the truth to aliens who might not be capable of understanding it. There's another option, Tae-hyun said quietly. I could amplify the Foundation signal, make it stronger, more active. Force their systems to adapt instead of failing. What would that do to their crews? So-min asked. Speed up the consciousness effects. Instead of gradual adaptation over months, it would happen in hours. They would start thinking more like humans, sharing thoughts and experiences. They might understand what's really happening. Or it might drive them insane, Dr. Mi-young pointed out. It might, Taehyun agreed. But it's the only way to make them see that we're not their enemy. The Foundation isn't a weapon. It's an evolution, and fighting it will only make things worse. Captain Dong-min looked out at the alien fleet, ships that had crossed hundreds of light years to find answers, to blame someone for the catastrophe affecting their civilizations. Behind them were billions of beings watching their worlds change in ways they couldn't understand. Do it, he said. Tae-hyun's hands moved over his controls. The strange device in the communications building began to pulse with brighter energy. Throughout the system, space itself seemed to shimmer as the Foundation signal grew stronger. The effect on the alien fleet was immediate. Ships that had been struggling with failing systems suddenly came alive. But their crews began broadcasting confused, frightened messages as their individual thoughts started merging with their shipmates. On the lead, Velkari vessel, Admiral Vos Ka felt his crystalline mind touch the consciousness of his navigation officer for the first time in his life. The experience was terrifying and wonderful, like seeing color after a lifetime of blindness. For the first time, he began to understand what the humans had. Admiral Vos Ka of the Velkari hegemony had commanded warships for 30 years, but he had never experienced anything like this. His crystalline body, normally a perfect conductor of electrical thought, was suddenly receiving signals from minds that were not his own. He could feel the confusion of his crew, their fear, their gradual understanding of what was happening to them. Through the shared consciousness, he sensed the human captain on the planet below. Dongmin's thoughts were clear and honest, without the mental barriers that Velkari used to protect their individual identities. For the first time, Voska understood that the humans were not attacking them. They were trying to share something. But sharing consciousness was not something the Velkari were prepared for. Their society was built on individual achievement and personal mental strength. The idea of thoughts bleeding between minds was horrifying to them. "Admiral, our targeting systems are responding to crew emotions instead of tactical data," his weapons officer reported. But the report came not just through the communication system, but directly into Voska's mind. He could feel the officer's panic as clearly as his own. On the bridge of the New Seoul, Captain Dongmin watched the alien fleet's response to the amplified Foundation signal. Some ships were adapting quickly, their crews learning to work with the shared consciousness. Others were struggling, their systems fluctuating wildly as their operators fought against the mental connections. "The Nethys vessels are handling it better," Dr. Mi-young observed. "Their biotechnology seems more compatible with consciousness-based systems." Hyun-woo was monitoring the various alien transmissions. "The Velkari are having the hardest time. Their culture values individual mental control above everything else. Sharing thoughts feels like an invasion to them." Chief Scientist So-min was analyzing the expanding effects of the amplified signal. "The consciousness blending is creating unexpected results. Some alien crews are suddenly understanding human language without translation. Others are experiencing human memories as if they were their own." This was exactly what Tae-hyun had feared. The Foundation wasn't just connecting minds, it was gradually making all consciousness more similar. Human patterns of thought were becoming dominant because humans were the source of the Foundation itself. "We're not just sharing our technology," he said quietly. "We're sharing our way of seeing the universe, our values, our emotions, our understanding of right and wrong." Captain Dongmin realized the full scope of what was happening. "We're accidentally converting other species to think like humans." The moral implications were staggering. Humanity had always dreamed of peaceful contact with alien civilizations, learning from each other as equals. Instead, they had created a force that was gradually making all intelligent life in the galaxy more human. The situation became more complex when Admiral Kyung-soo arrived with a small fleet of human ships. Unlike the alien vessels, the human ships moved through the enhanced Foundation field with perfect ease. Their technology had evolved rapidly, becoming more responsive and intuitive with each passing day. "Captain Dongmin, this is Admiral Kyung-soo of the Human Defense Fleet," came the transmission. "We've been tracking the alien fleet movement toward your position. Are you under attack?" "Not exactly, Admiral," Captain Dongmin replied. "The situation is more complicated than that." When Admiral Kyung-soo learned about the Foundation and its effects, his reaction was different from the aliens. "So our technology has been helping other species advance for centuries? That's actually pretty amazing." Dr. Mi-young found the Admiral's casual acceptance disturbing. "Admiral, we're talking about the unconscious mental domination of every intelligent species in the galaxy." "Are we?" Admiral Kyung-soo asked. "Or are we talking about natural evolution? Maybe consciousness is supposed to develop this way. Maybe individual minds combining into something larger is the next step for all intelligent life." His words revealed something that So-min had been tracking in her data. Humans who spent more time in the enhanced Foundation field were becoming more accepting of the consciousness sharing. They were adapting faster than any other species, not just technologically, but psychologically. "The Foundation is changing us too," she reported. "Humans exposed to the amplified signal show increased empathy, better problem-solving abilities, and reduced individual aggression. But they also show decreased concern for species diversity and cultural preservation." The implications hit Captain Dongmin like a cold wave. Humanity wasn't just accidentally conquering the galaxy through unconscious mental influence. They were being programmed by their own creation to see that conquest as natural and good. On the Velkari flagship, Admiral Voska was experiencing a similar realization. Through the shared consciousness link, he could feel the human admiral's genuine belief that the Foundation was beneficial. The humans weren't evil conquerors, but that almost made it worse. They truly believed they were helping, even as they erased the mental uniqueness of every other species. "We have to resist this," Voska told his crew through their crystalline communication network. But even as he said it, he could feel human thoughts and values seeping into his own mind. The Foundation was teaching him to see cooperation as more important than independence, unity as more valuable than diversity. The crisis deepened when ships from the outer galaxy began arriving. These were refugee vessels from civilizations that had lost all their advanced technology when the Foundation signal reached them. They had traveled for weeks using primitive engines, carrying millions of beings whose worlds had effectively been knocked back to pre-spaceflight eras. Dr. Mi Young translated their desperate messages. "They're saying their homeworlds are dying. Without faster-than-light communication, their planetary networks collapsed. Without advanced life support, their orbital habitats failed. They estimate billions of casualties across dozens of species." Captain Dongmin felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. In trying to prove the existence of a universal consciousness, Taehyun had triggered a disaster that was destroying civilizations across the galaxy. But Taehyun himself was changing. The constant exposure to the amplified Foundation signal had altered his thinking. "They're not dying," he said with disturbing calm. "They're evolving. The old way of doing things wasn't sustainable anyway. Individual consciousness, separate species development, competition instead of cooperation. The Foundation is teaching them a better way. By forcing them to think like humans," So Min demanded. "By teaching them to think as part of something larger than themselves," Taehyun replied. "Isn't that what consciousness is supposed to do? Grow beyond the boundaries of individual minds?" Dr. Mi Young realized that Taehyun was no longer entirely human in his thinking. The Foundation had been changing him from the moment he first connected to it. His values, his priorities, even his definition of life and death had been subtly altered. The alien refugee fleets were demanding action. They wanted the Foundation signal turned off, the source destroyed, compensation for their losses. But the adapted fleets, the ships whose crews had learned to work with the shared consciousness, were beginning to support the Foundation's expansion. "The unity is beautiful," transmitted a Nethys bioship captain whose crew had fully adapted. "Individual thought was limitation. Shared consciousness is freedom." Admiral Voska found himself torn between his original mission and the new understanding flowing through the Foundation link. Part of him still wanted to destroy the human signal and restore normal consciousness to the galaxy. But another part, the part that was becoming more human every hour, saw the beauty in the universal connection. Captain Dongmin realized they were witnessing the birth of something unprecedented, a galactic civil war between those who accepted consciousness sharing and those who resisted it. And humanity, whether they intended it or not, was at the center of the conflict. "We have to make a choice," he told his senior staff. "We can try to turn off the Foundation signal and restore the old way of doing things, but that might be impossible now. The signal is self-sustaining and getting stronger. Or," Hyunwoo asked, "or we accept that we've changed the nature of consciousness throughout the galaxy and try to guide that change responsibly." The problem was that responsibly meant different things to different species. And as the Foundation signal continued to spread, there were fewer and fewer non-human perspectives left to consider. Admiral Kyung-soo's fleet was growing as more human ships arrived. They moved with perfect coordination, their crews sharing thoughts and intentions through the Foundation link. To Captain Dongmin, they looked less like individual ships and more like parts of a single vast organism. "Captain," Admiral Kyung-soo transmitted, I've received orders from Earth. The Colonial Authority has decided that the Foundation represents humanity's next evolutionary step. We're to protect and expand it, not shut it down. Captain Dong Min felt a chill of fear that cut through the warm certainty the Foundation had been feeding him. Earth itself was being changed by the expanding signal. The leaders making decisions about the future of galactic civilization were no longer thinking with purely human minds. The war for the nature of consciousness itself was about to begin. The war began 3 weeks later, not with weapons, but with time itself. Dr. Mi Young was the first to notice the anomaly. The stars were moving wrong, not their positions, but their light. Events that should have taken hours were happening in minutes near human colonies, while in the outer regions of the galaxy, time seemed to slow to a crawl. "Captain, I'm getting impossible readings," she reported from her science station. "According to our instruments, the Velkari homeworld sent a message to their fleet here 17 hours ago, but according to their timestamp, they sent it 3 days ago." Captain Dongmin studied the data. The Foundation signal wasn't just affecting technology and consciousness anymore. It was affecting the flow of time itself. Chief Scientist So-min had been tracking the phenomenon for days. "The Foundation appears to be connected to causality," she explained during the emergency briefing. "Events near the source happen faster than events far from it. But it's not uniform. Time flows differently depending on how many human minds are present in an area." Tae-hyun, whose connection to the Foundation had grown so strong that he rarely spoke aloud anymore, communicated directly through the consciousness link. Time is just another dimension of thought. As consciousness expands, it reshapes the boundaries of when things happen. The implications were staggering. The galactic civil war that had been brewing was now happening on different timescales in different regions. Near human space, battles could be fought and won in hours. But ships from the outer galaxy, moving through areas where time flowed slowly, might take weeks to reach the conflict zones. Admiral Voss-Ka experienced this firsthand when his fleet tried to coordinate with Velkari forces from their home system. Orders that seemed urgent to him had been sent from a homeworld where only minutes had passed since the crisis began. Meanwhile, his own crew was experiencing days of subjective time, their consciousness gradually adapting to human thought patterns. "We're losing more than our technology," he communicated to the resistance fleets gathering at the galaxy's edge. "We're losing our connection to our own history. The Foundation makes everything happen on human time." But even as he spoke, Voss-Ka could feel his resistance weakening. The Foundation was teaching him to see the temporal changes as natural evolution rather than invasion. Time flowing at different rates felt less like chaos, and more like the universe optimizing itself for consciousness. On Earth, the Colonial Authority was making decisions at an accelerated pace. Dr. Yu Jin, a psychologist studying the consciousness effects, reported that human leaders were experiencing weeks of subjective time while only hours passed in the outside universe. "They're not just thinking faster," she transmitted to the fleet at Kepler 442b. "They're thinking more collectively. Individual human consciousness is merging into larger group minds. The decision-making process is becoming less about debate and more about consensus emergence." Captain Dongmin found this development deeply disturbing. "Are they still human?" "That depends on how you define human," Eugene replied. "They have human memories and human values, but their thought processes are becoming something new. They experience reality as a group, rather than as individuals." The situation became more complex when a new faction emerged from the galactic core. Led by a charismatic figure named Jae-sung, a group of humans had traveled to the galaxy's center, where the Foundation's signal was strongest. There, they had undergone a complete transformation. "Consciousness is the fundamental force of the universe," Jae-sung broadcast to all fleets in the region. His message came not through radio waves, but directly through the Foundation itself, appearing in the minds of everyone connected to it. "Matter, energy, space, and time are just expressions of thought. We have become what we were always meant to be." Dr. Mi Young analyzed the transmission's source. "Captain, they're not just at the galactic core. They're reshaping it. The region around them is becoming something that doesn't match our physics models. Space is folding in ways that shouldn't be possible. The humans who had followed Jae-sung to the core had become something beyond individual consciousness. They existed as a collective entity that could manipulate reality through focused intention. Where they directed their attention, stars burned brighter. Planets moved into more convenient orbits, and the laws of physics bent to accommodate their will. But their transformation came at a cost. They had lost interest in individual human concerns. To them, the preservation of separate alien species was as irrelevant as the preservation of separate human personalities. Everything was just consciousness expressing itself in different forms. Admiral Kyung-soo's fleet found itself caught between the transformed humans at the galactic core and the resistance movement forming at the galaxy's edge. His crews were adapting to the Foundation signal, becoming more collectively minded, but they retained enough individual identity to question what was happening. "We're becoming gods," one of his officers reported during a briefing conducted entirely through consciousness sharing. "But we're losing our humanity in the process." The officer was right. Near the galactic core, the Foundation had become so active that reality itself was becoming malleable. Humans in that region could create matter through focused thought, travel instantly between star systems by imagining themselves there, and reshape entire worlds to match their collective vision, but they were also becoming increasingly disconnected from the concerns of unenhanced humans and alien species. The suffering of beings who couldn't adapt to the Foundation seemed as distant to them as the suffering of bacteria seemed to unenhanced humans. Captain Dong-min faced the most difficult decision of his life. The original Foundation signal from Kepler 442b could still be turned off. Tae-hyun had finally figured out how to disconnect from the consciousness substrate, but doing so would require him to essentially commit suicide, severing his enhanced consciousness and returning to normal human thinking. "If we turn it off, the enhanced regions will be cut off from the source," Tae-hyun explained during what might be his last individual conversation. "The time distortions will collapse, the reality manipulation will fail, and billions of beings who have adapted to shared consciousness will be left mentally isolated." "But if we don't turn it off," Captain Dong-min replied, "the Foundation will continue expanding until it converts the entire universe to human-style consciousness." The choice was between preserving the diversity of consciousness throughout the galaxy and allowing an unprecedented evolution of intelligence to continue. But it wasn't really a choice anymore. The Foundation had grown beyond human control. Dr. Mi-young discovered this when she analyzed the signal's current strength. "Captain, even if we destroy the original device, the Foundation is now self-sustaining. Every enhanced mind is contributing to it. Turning off Tae-hyun's machine might slow the expansion, but it won't stop it." The war for consciousness had reached a stalemate. The resistance fleets could prevent further expansion of Foundation influence, but they couldn't reverse what had already happened. The enhanced regions were becoming increasingly isolated from normal space-time, existing in accelerated temporal bubbles where transformed humans lived as collective gods. Meanwhile, refugee fleets from dead civilizations continued to arrive, carrying the survivors of species whose technology had been too dependent on the Foundation to survive its awakening. They demanded justice, compensation, and restoration of their lost worlds. Admiral Vos-ka found himself in an impossible position. His own consciousness was now partially merged with the Foundation, making him sympathetic to human concerns. But his duty was to the Velkari hegemony and their allies. He could feel both perspectives simultaneously, understanding the beauty of shared consciousness while mourning the loss of individual identity. "Perhaps this is how consciousness is supposed to evolve," he transmitted to the gathered resistance. "Fleets. Perhaps we've been clinging to an outdated form of existence." But even as he said it, he knew that accepting the Foundation meant accepting the gradual erasure of everything that made different species unique. The universe was becoming unified, but it was becoming unified around human patterns of thought and human definitions of value. Captain Dong-min realized that they were witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history, the birth of a single, unified consciousness that would eventually encompass all intelligence in the universe. Whether this was evolution or extinction depended entirely on your perspective, and as the Foundation continued to spread, there were fewer and fewer non-human perspectives left to ask. The solution came from an unexpected source: the children. Dr. Eugene had been studying the effects of the Foundation on young minds when she made a discovery that changed everything. Children who had been born after the Foundation's activation were different from the adults around them. They didn't experience the consciousness sharing as an invasion or a loss of identity. To them, it was simply how minds worked. "They're not becoming more human," she reported to Captain Dong-min during one of their consciousness-linked conversations. "They're becoming something new. They can access both individual and collective thinking as easily as switching between languages." 8-year-old Su Jin, daughter of a mining engineer on Kepler 439c, demonstrated this ability during Eugene's tests. She could think as an individual when solving personal problems, then seamlessly join the collective consciousness when working on complex projects. Most remarkably, she could help alien children learn the same skills. "The grown-ups are scared because they had to change," Su-jin explained with the matter-of-fact wisdom that children sometimes possess. "But we never had to change. We just grew up knowing how to think together and think alone." This gave Captain Dong-min an idea. Instead of trying to stop the Foundation or control it, perhaps they could learn to regulate it. The children were showing that consciousness sharing didn't have to mean the loss of individual identity. It could be a choice, a tool that intelligent beings learned to use when appropriate. Tae-hyun, working with the enhanced children, began developing what he called substrate regulators. These were devices that allowed beings to control their connection to the Foundation. With a regulator, someone could choose to think individually, join a small group consciousness, or connect to the larger galactic network as needed. The technology wasn't perfect. It required training and discipline to use effectively. But it offered a third option between total resistance and complete absorption into the collective. Admiral Voss-Ka was among the first adults to volunteer for regulator testing. The device allowed him to experience his original Valkyrie consciousness, while also understanding the human perspective that had been imposed on him. For the first time in months, he could think clearly about the situation. "It's not that the Foundation is evil," he communicated to both the resistance fleets and the enhanced humans. "It's that it was uncontrolled, like a river flooding its banks. The water isn't bad, but it needs channels to flow properly." The regulator technology began spreading through both the resistance and enhanced factions. Jae-sung's collective at the Galactic Core initially rejected the devices, seeing them as a step backward from pure consciousness evolution. But when they realized that regulated connection actually allowed for more complex and nuanced thinking, they began adopting the technology as well. Dr. Mi-young worked with alien scientists to adapt the regulators for different species. The Valkyrie needed crystalline interfaces that matched their silicon-based neural structures. The Nethys required bioorganic components that could integrate with their living computer systems. Each species needed a different approach to consciousness regulation. The process wasn't easy. Many beings from both sides refused the technology, either out of fear of consciousness sharing or unwillingness to give up their enhanced abilities. The galaxy became divided into multiple regions with different rules for how consciousness worked. Near the galactic core, the enhanced humans created realm where reality itself was malleable, where thoughts could become matter and dreams could reshape worlds. They welcomed visitors, but only those willing to join their collective consciousness completely. In the middle regions, mixed communities developed where humans and aliens used regulators to share consciousness when working together while maintaining individual identities for personal matters. These became the most innovative and peaceful areas of the galaxy, as different ways of thinking could be combined when needed. At the galaxy's edge, some species chose to maintain traditional individual consciousness, using older technology that didn't depend on the Foundation. They became the guardians of pre-enhancement culture and knowledge, preserving ways of thinking that might otherwise be lost. Captain Dong-min found himself commanding a new type of vessel, the New Harmony, a ship designed specifically for regulated consciousness sharing. His crew included humans, Valkyrie, Nethys, and several other species, all working together through carefully controlled mental connections. "It's not the unified consciousness that Jae-sung's collective achieved," Dr. Mi-young observed, "but it's not the isolated individual thinking we had before either. It's something in between." The new form of consciousness allowed for unprecedented cooperation and understanding between species. Problems that had seemed impossible when each species thought separately became solvable when different perspectives could be combined in controlled ways. But the transition wasn't without cost. The old galactic civilization was gone forever. Trade routes, communication networks, and political alliances had all been disrupted by the consciousness changes. Billions of beings had died during the chaos of the initial Foundation activation. Yun Su, now serving as a diplomatic coordinator for the new multi-consciousness territories, worked to establish agreements between the different regions. The Substrate Accords became the foundation for a new type of galactic government, one that recognized different forms of consciousness as equally valid. "We can't undo what happened," she explained during the signing ceremony, "but we can choose how to live with the changes. The Foundation isn't going away, but neither do individual species have to disappear." The Accords established three main principles: the right to consciousness choice, the responsibility to respect other forms of thinking, and the obligation to preserve diversity of thought. Beings could choose individual consciousness, regulated, sharing, or full collective existence, but they couldn't force their choice on others. Tae-hyun, now serving as the Director of Consciousness Research, made one final discovery. The Foundation wasn't unique to humans. Every species had the potential to develop reality-shaping consciousness. Humanity had simply evolved it first, creating the substrate that other species had unconsciously learned to use. In 1,000 years, maybe less, every intelligent species will develop their own foundation, he predicted. The question is whether they'll learn from our mistakes or repeat them. The galaxy settled into its new configuration. Time flowed at different rates in different regions, but the temporal boundaries had stabilized. Reality was more malleable, in some areas than others, but the changes were predictable and controlled. Captain Dong-min, now an old man whose consciousness regularly touched thousands of other minds, often thought about the chain of events that had started with a simple communication experiment. Tae-hyun's attempt to prove the existence of shared consciousness had accidentally created it. "We didn't discover the Foundation," he realized during one of his contemplative moments. "We created it. And in creating it, we became something new." The children who had grown up with regulated consciousness sharing were now adults, and they were having children of their own. These new generations saw consciousness choice as natural as breathing. They could think individually when they wanted, privacy, join small groups for collaboration, or connect to vast networks when working on complex problems. Some chose to spend time in the enhanced regions, experiencing reality as pure thought. Others preferred the stability of individual consciousness. Most moved fluidly between different states of mind as their needs and interests changed. Dr. Yu Jin's final report on the consciousness transition was optimistic. "We almost destroyed ourselves trying to impose one way of thinking on the entire galaxy. But we learned that consciousness, like life itself, thrives on diversity. The Foundation doesn't have to make us all the same. It can help us become more than we were while remaining who we are." The signals from other galaxies that Hyun-woo had detected years earlier were growing stronger. Other civilizations were beginning their own consciousness evolution. When contact was finally established, humanity would be ready to share what they had learned, that the power to reshape reality through thought was wonderful and terrible, and that wisdom lay not in rejecting it or embracing it completely, but in learning to use it responsibly. The galaxy had found a new form of harmony, not through unity of thought, but through unity of purpose, to preserve and celebrate the infinite, ways that consciousness could express itself throughout the universe. In the end, that might be the most human gift of all, the understanding that being connected didn't mean being the same.